Let's take you to this story now that's been playing out for several days. Police say 5 people have been arrested today for public violence in Alexandra, north of Johannesburg. Police, with the assistance of taxi associations in the township, have restored calm and order. Dudula Movement earlier today vowed to disrupt schooling in Alex. They adamant that undocumented foreign nationals must stop trading in Alexandra. Yesterday, scores of people went to Pan Africa Mall, shutting down shops and removing street vendors. They, however, denied being xenophobic, saying they are protecting the economy. Johannesburg District Commissioner Major General Max Masha says the law enforcement agents will continue monitoring the area. All right, now let's discuss this further. We're joined via Zoom by Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, the Chairperson of the Africa Diaspora Forum. A very good afternoon to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me.
All right. Now, of course, we've been seeing these scenes play out. We understand that a calm has been restored in Alex following yesterday's clash. But what do you think is behind these latest acts of violence?
Well, look, as far as Alex is concerned in particular, look, Alex has always been a boiling, hot point as far as, xenophobic attacks are concerned. Remember in 2019, 2020. But what we have established this far is that there is a difference between this Dudula, group and the other Operation Dudula, because we sought to sit down with the groups and ensure that at least, we can resolve these issues by trying to remove the element, of people taking the law into their own hands, going to people who they perceive and think that they are illegal immigrants, without rather informing the authorities and letting the authorities do their work. So we see that there are elements of criminality that are taking place and people hiding, behind saying that they are fighting illegal immigration.
Doctor, is there really, though, Dr. Sibanda, as you begin to interrogate and, as you said, have conversation with these various groups, is there really a difference between the two groups? I mean, both groups seem to have the same modus operandi, and they seem to say that they are targeting undocumented foreign nationals. But as we've seen in the case in Hillbrow not too long ago, about 2 weeks ago, and what we are seeing play out now in Alex, are very similar in that not only are foreign nationals being attacked and vendors, being forced to close shop, we're also seeing South Africans, falling victim to some of these acts.
Very true. This morning when I spoke to the Deputy Chairperson of the group that they call themselves Operation Dudula, the one led by Lax, he says, look, we are not the same group, but like you've quite said, that the modus operandi is the same, because our engagements with the other group, the Operation Dudula group, was basically that, look, people have got a protected right to protest, but people may not become a law unto themselves. They may not go into shops, close shops, and become labor inspectors or home affairs officials. But if they suspect there is anything illegal that is taking place, they need to report to the relevant authorities to deal with those issues. So indeed, the modus operandi, looks quite the same, though, because maybe, the one for yesterday, because they were, very recent and seemingly, a high number of injuries, they've, the Operation Dudula group has distanced itself from it. But what we seek is basically to have, a clear, a statement to ensure that, across the country, anyone who is seen to be inciting violence and not demonstrating peacefully or protesting, the law must take its course and such persons must be arrested.
Now, you speak about having a firm kind of stand from the South African side in terms of what is happening. Talk to me about, do you think, as you represent this diaspora, do you think the South African government is missing an opportunity here where the narrative by various leaders is contradictory at some points and at best very flaky?
Well, yes, that's very true. I think we've got quite a number of narratives that being put across and that are quite, contradictory, in the sense that, every now and again when we know that, of course, of late, especially on the political spectrum, there is a lot of populism based on the right-wing extremism. And we see that, of course, our government seems to be picking up, because we are seeing that, a number of laws, are also being changed towards that particular area. We have seen people being kicked from hospitals, even including asylum seekers and refugees, without, giving them assistance, and in some cases not given letters if they give birth because they have not paid. And we are seeing, the labor migration policy, which in itself appears to be a good document, though of course there's got issues there. So what we are seeing right now is that there is a bit of a confused position and state of affairs, because the important thing is that when people stand up and take the law into their own hands, the first thing is to make sure that anyone who does that, the law is going to take course, so that we don't have these groups clashing like what we saw happening. So this opportunity of, showing that the law is paramount and the law applies to everyone, it must not be missed. It must be used so that, everyone who wants to engage in such, activities must be taken to book. We saw this happen in July last year when there were the lootings. So it is very important that, law enforcement actually, stands up to these particular occasions and firmly, asserts itself.
And I mean, you speak about the labor migration documents. I mean, the policy, as you've said yourself, is a very good document, and one that needs to probably be expedited, because I think therein lies, some truth in some of these, protesters that we're seeing in as far as communities are concerned. But there's been a lot of talk that the anger is directed to the wrong people, and it actually should be directed to the South African government. What do you think then needs to happen now in order for us to start seeing some sort of stability, particularly in most of these communities where the foreign nationals are residing?
Well, I think the first thing is basically that people that are dissatisfied with government action, they need to understand that it is not always it's not the right thing to take and vent their anger on the defenseless, particularly, the migrant communities, of which a lot of them, are in the same position as South Africans, and some of them are documented and also trying an ordinary living, and some of them have got permanent residence, which means that, South Africa is their home. What we need to see happening is we need to see people protesting lawfully against government if they're not happy with service delivery or unemployment. And that means protesting and going to government, to protest and send memoranda, to take government, to account. We cannot continue, especially as African people, to be seen to be protesting in a manner that is inappropriate, like people pulling down, signs, buildings, posts, and burning down infrastructure, which is essential to the extent that when the protests are over, it is us, the same people, that are going to suffer. So what we need to see now, we need maybe civic education, where people get to understand the purpose of protesting, to the extent that, protests are not meant to be destructive, but they are meant to ensure that government complies. And if government is not complying as a political party, they know that, people understand their rights, and they will either call a referendum or vote out that particular government rather than to fight amongst themselves.
Dr. Sibanda, thank you so much for your time on the channel. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, there is a chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum.